And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
And for those of you old enough to remember the 2000 election and its aftermath, remember the hanging chads and all of the stuff that went on down in Florida, where arguably the closest election in American history, decided by just a few hundred votes in a gigantic state like Florida, caused them to reinvent themselves electorally and to completely revamp their election system, so that today, in a state that's very big, very diverse, with big cities and tiny little rural areas, reports their votes 2 or 3 hours after the polls close, and does so with virtual metaphysical certainty. Meanwhile, across the country, we've got House districts, congressional districts, yet to be decided 2.5 weeks later. And here in my home state of Pennsylvania, it's recount week, because incumbent Senator Bob Casey, who lost the November election to Dave McCormick, refuses to concede and has gone through with a so-called automatic recount. Now, it's not truly so automatic. He could disclaim or waive it, but he wanted to go through with it. So I, along with many others, have sat through mind-numbing days. Believe me, watching paint dry is a whole lot more exciting than seeing people take reams of paper, stick them into scanners, and then watch as the scanners do their work. But in one county where I was just before we taped this today, they finished up. And you know what the net result was? Dave McCormick picked up 3 votes. 3. And guess what? Bob Casey picked up 3 votes. 3. Net change, 0. And that's likely to be what the thing is statewide. There's going to be a little bit of a change, but 17,000 votes to overcome simply isn't going to happen. So this recall should have been called off long ago, and Bob Casey should have done the right thing and conceded, but apparently there are election deniers in our midst. And playing right into this, of course, are our Democrat friends who claim to be the great defenders of democracy and who believe in the rule of law. And down in Bucks County, where I once lived, Diane Marseglia, the chairman of the county commissioners down there, says, I guess she's not the chairman, but she's on the majority side of the county commissioners in Bucks County, says, basically, everybody breaks the law now and then, and I don't care if we're going to break the law here with what the Supreme Court has clearly told us is the case. She said, oh, it was a little confusing. The Supreme Court came out and said it again, apparently just for her benefit. But her weaseling out, or trying to weasel out of those statements, was the most pathetic example of quote-unquote crisis communications I've ever seen. She said she was taken out of context. Well, the problem was the context was very, very clear. It was videotaped, and everybody saw it for themselves. So my guess is that Diane Marseglia, who was the same woman, by the way, who shut down the voting lines in Bucks County before Election Day, is going to be long remembered for those horrific statements, and hopefully she will pay the political price. There's a case to be made for her to be prosecuted. I doubt that will happen, but we ought to see what actually does, because ultimately the voters will have their say. And just a quick disclaimer, if I might. You've heard me say before, truthfully, that this is unedited, unscripted, and as a result, I was talking with Kevin Harley, whom some of you know, and said, Kevin, how can we make it just a little bit shorter? Because it's really supposed to be closer to the best 60-ish seconds rather than minutes. And he told me, just talk less. So I'm going to try to do that this week. But I want to remind you that this is unedited, unscripted. There's no teleprompter. People always say, you're sure you don't read off of a teleprompter? I said, if I did, it would be a whole lot better. But we do ask you to like, share, subscribe, and send comments. I'll actually look at the comments personally and maybe mention them in a previous, or in a, not in a previous, in a future show, because we want you to be an active part of the best 60-ish seconds of your week. And turning to 3 much more serious things. First of all, we try to pay tribute to those who have passed away. And this week, we mourn the loss of Skip Ebert, who was both the district attorney and a common pleas court judge in Cumberland County. And, you know, it's become a very neat thing to hold an office in non-consecutive terms. And Skip Ebert did that, going from DA to judge back to DA. Somebody else is going to serve 2 non-consecutive terms here in just a couple of months. But Skip Ebert was a great man, a great prosecutor, and he will be sorely missed. On a much happier note, this week marks the 100th birthday of my beloved mom, Louise Giroux. On November 27th, she will hit the century mark. What a wonderful woman. She's still as vital as can be, both mentally as quick as a cat and physically as strong and fit as you could possibly be. She could run circles around a 30-year-old. But this woman who dedicated her life to God, who was a missionary, adopted 2 kids from Brazil, myself being one of them, raised us and adopted another one here in the United States, and just took such great care of us and such great care of so many other people, beloved by so many, but especially by me. Happy birthday, Mom. It is just a great thing that you have reached that milestone, and I love you with all of my heart. And finally, of course, this week we also observe and celebrate Thanksgiving Day. In previous years, I've given the history of Thanksgiving Day, which is very, very interesting in how it became a national holiday. But today I just want to take a moment to reflect on all that we have to be so incredibly thankful for. Not just the results of the election a couple of weeks ago, but the fact that we live in the greatest nation in the history of civilization. With all of its problems and perils, it still is that, the shining city on a hill about which Ronald Reagan spoke so many times and told us that the eyes of all mankind will be upon us. That's as a nation, but we as individuals are blessed with family and friends, with health and good fortune. You know, the poorest among us lives better than 90% of the world. And when you travel just a little bit, you know what a great thing it always is to return home. And so, as we give thanks to God for all that He has blessed us with, and we can't even say thank you enough, I just want to close with the words to my favorite Thanksgiving hymn. Now thank we all our God with hearts and hands and voices, who wondrous things has done, in whom His world rejoices, who from our mother's arms has blessed us on our way with countless gifts of love, and still is ours today. Happy Thanksgiving. And for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
Kiss goodbye. Goodbye. I want all A's.
Okay.
Okay, all A's. And when you get older, what are you going to remember? No drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And, you know what else? No tattoos. I don't ever want to see tattoos on you.